Hello and welcome to the Negotiation Society podcast. Our guest today on the Inside My Head series currently sits as partner for KPMG in Hong Kong, heading up the technology and consumer retail sectors of the business here. With 25 years plus experience across Asia Pacific and multiple sectors, he now actively drives business development in the region whilst also leading the industry into tomorrow with his thought leadership. A regular speaker at events and an avid rugby fan, he also sits on the Hong Kong Rugby Union CSR committee, as well as being the president of the world-renowned Hong Kong Potbelly Pig's rugby team. The rugby team itself aims to promote rugby across Asia, as well as supporting the underprivileged in the region. Anson Bailey, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Adam Frampton, it's a pleasure. Great to be on your Inside My Head podcast. Though I'm not quite sure you want to be really inside my head, but I'm sure over the next 30 minutes we can have a chat and perhaps I can share some of my latest thoughts and ideas about the marketplace.
That would be great. It'd be really, really appreciated. And I'm sure all the audience would love to hear it too. First things first, in 60 seconds, can you tell me a bit more about your role within KPMG and how that fits into the kind of APAC commercial landscape?
I'm a partner here at KPMG China, based in our Hong Kong offices. We have roughly 31 offices today across KPMG China. I think nearly 16,000 professionals working across that network. Obviously, bigger, we're part of a bigger global network and a regional network as well. I've been at KPMG now for 23 years. How the time has flown by, Adam, especially when you're having fun. And I think just inside my head very quickly, I think a key message to everybody is enjoy, enjoy your work, enjoy life, live life, I think is a very key message for all of us. But it's been fascinating. It's been a fascinating journey working across KPMG. I am one of the partners covering business development. We call business development markets. So I'm part of the KPMG markets team that, kind of covers the BD, but we look at very much about sectors and accounts and marketing. So I'm also the lead partner on a number of accounts, but I'm also driving one of our sectors, which is consumer and retail across the whole of the Asia Pacific region, Adam.
That's part of the interest I had in, remember listening to you talking at a recent event and the insights that you brought from that kind of the retail perspective. And certainly retail in Hong Kong has seen its ups and downs in the last sort of 24 months. Certainly think it's back up on the rise now.
Yeah, Adam, I am always a kind of optimistic kind of guy. Very much the glass is still half full. I do think there are significant opportunities. I think it's fair to say that we've been through a very tough few years. We've had the social unrest, and then we got hit by another black swan, which of course was COVID. And that's lasted a lot longer than all of us expected, I think. But it's probably taught us a few things as well, Adam. I think all of us now are perhaps a little bit more digitally minded. And I think one thing is for sure, COVID-19 has accelerated everything digitally. I think we've perhaps learned to be a little bit more resilient, perhaps a tad more agile with regards to business and going to market. And certainly I talk to a lot of my consumer and retail clients, and I think it is fair to say that everyone has been through a tough time. But it is quite interesting, Adam, because I think people are now cautiously optimistic, right? They're not, entirely, I would say cautiously optimistic is probably a good term for all of us to use right now. I was at an event yesterday. In fact, it was the French Chamber Luxury Symposium. A great event, a full house over at the Rosewood, over in the K11 Museum. Great place if you haven't already been there. Great venue. Sonia Cheng, the head of Rosewood, she was giving an opening speech, and I think again there was cautious optimism. I think it's also fair to say that we are now starting to see people return to Hong Kong. And for everybody listening today, Hong Kong is open. We are open for business. But it was very interesting, Adam, because we did hear from a number of the big brands that they are now seeing a return, for example, of those mainland Chinese consumers. Just in the last 2 months, on average, we've seen those sales attributable to, for example, the mainland Chinese consumers increase from, probably about 7-8% at the beginning of January to well over 30% by the end of February. So again, the market is starting to bubble along, but that's, of course, there's still challenges out there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the others. I mean, I'm certainly seeing the bustling nature of Hong Kong return, and likelihood. I mean, I was in Singapore recently, and likelihood the similar there with the retail market. What do you think that challenge is that we're kind of facing in the retail market at the moment? What would you identify as the big challenge at the moment?
I think probably the number one challenge is people. I think, as always, we've seen a number of very talented people leaving that consumer retail sector. As we know, because of COVID, and there were a lot of restrictions, I think a number of corporates, they were forced to lay off, a number of people. And equally, I think people have also kind of started to rethink what they want in life. And there are also some really interesting opportunities out there. Technology, innovation, AI, the metaverse, Adam, NFTs. These are all hot topics, right? So, but I do think, again, the key message for all of us is our people, because I think there's a lot of discussion around technology, and I was going to say, let's not confuse the issue here. Technology is going to act as a great enabler, but we still need the people behind that, right? We still need to have a vibrant workforce that's going to be working with us in that consumer retail space.
No, I agree with you there. And the advancement in technology can enhance how we work and how we do consume goods as well. One thing I'm interested in is your perspective from the retail landscape. How much, one of the buzzwords you used before, but how much collaboration is going to be a key part of the future of consumers and the future of retail?
Well, I think collaboration is actually a very key part of our future, Adam. And that's not just at the consumer, the retail store level. That's across our entire supply chains. If I look today at the manufacturing, at the sourcing side of the business, we do need to collaborate. The retailers are going to have to collaborate far more with the manufacturers, with their suppliers and vendors. And I think that's going to be key, because the one thing that we have learnt, Adam, because there's more technology available, because there's more data available, people now can see those supply chains. There's far more transparency like never before. And so those consumers are also asking a lot more questions, in terms of, are you sourcing the right way? Is it ethical sourcing? ESG is another buzzword as well, Adam, that we hear a lot more about. Sustainability. And, how can we be more sustainable, purpose-driven companies? I think that's really, really important. And I think a key message for all of us is those future consumers, not the older consumers like me, the post-millennial consumers, Adam, but it's really about those Gen Z consumers that I think we're going to see a big focus. And those Gen Z consumers, I think that they're interesting for all of us, because ultimately they are the future of consumer. And I think we all need to pay close attention to that.
Yeah, the future of consumerism through that Gen Z can then obviously influence, how the retailers are sourcing and the supply chain, as you mentioned there, around sustainability. So I'm going to pivot a bit towards kind of negotiation here and ask you about what you're seeing from the retailer's perspective towards how they're negotiating with their supply chains now. Is there a sign towards more collaboration, or is it leaning more towards that competitiveness?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? What's that definition of collaboration versus the definition of negotiation? I think they're closely aligned in a lot of regards. But yeah, I mean, I think we are going to have to, or we will see far greater collaboration. Equally, it means far greater negotiation as well, right? Our life is one long negotiation, Adam. But what's interesting is that those brands are absolutely going to have to do a better job of negotiating and collaborating with their supply chains, with those manufacturers. I had a fascinating conversation with Anne-Laure Decours. She's the chief sourcing officer at Puma. And I was in the Puma offices over in Kowloon Bay just before last week. And we were catching up with Anne-Laure, and we were really kind of talking about how things are changing across those supply chains. And I think a key point that Anne-Laure made, Adam, was that we need to see far greater collaboration, far greater openness, and perhaps again, with regards to negotiation, that's going to be really, really important. It's got to be a win-win. It can't be a win-lose. We've all got to win-win, because if we win and those other guys lose, that probably means they're going to be out of business, right? So if we don't take care of those supply chains, if we don't take care of our supplier base, we need to share a lot more. We need to share a lot more of the data. We need to share the ideas and the innovation. And it was quite interesting because, again, Anne-Laure was talking about product development and material innovation as well. These things are all happening now, and there's far greater levels of collaboration than ever before. Anne-Laure gave a good example of how she's now working with those scientists, looking at how they can work with those chemical engineers to, really try and do something around the waste products, and how can they be greener and more sustainable, and how can they put those waste products back in to the supply chain. So I think there's there's a lot of interesting things going on, Adam, and I think that's a positive. That's a positive. I see that as a positive outcome in terms of the need for all of us to really embrace. We're going to have to embrace change, but we have to embrace collaboration, and we have got to negotiate in good faith, right? It's not a zero-sum game, which unfortunately in the past it has been, right? So yeah. I think these are the things that we now need to really focus in. And Adam, if you don't mind, just looking at the size of the prize, if you like, if we get it right, then those Gen Z consumers, there's a large number of them. And to give everybody an idea about the numbers we're talking about 300 million Gen Z consumers in China, just in China. And if you look at the rest of Southeast Asia, if you look at South Asia, including India as well, you've got a universe of another 280 million Gen Z consumers. That gives us a universe here in the region of nearly 600 million Gen Z consumers. Now, the key thing there is they are digital natives, Adam. So we need to ensure that we're communicating with them at the right level. But they're also demanding change. They are demanding that we have those transparent supply chains. They are demanding far greater sustainability, right? They are really concerned about the environment, and they will call you out. And I think that's another very key message, right? If you do all the greenwashing, then be prepared to equally get called out by those consumers as well moving forward. So interesting times, but we have got to navigate our way through these stormy waters. And, we've probably got to do a better job of collaborating and negotiating both the supply chain with our vendors and with those manufacturers, as well as those end users, along with those Gen Z consumers.
So I think, one of the things that interesting you mentioned is how the transparency is from the consumer to the retailer, but then also from the retailer to the supplier. The more that we're investing as retailers into our suppliers around creating and collaborating on sustainability, the higher level of transparency is needed. And of course, the impact that has on negotiation is that lifts up the dependency, and that of course is going to need to be more collaborative. Going to ask a bit of transparency from you, though, and leaning to the negotiation. Would love to hear if you have any personal success stories in negotiations, or even disasters, if you have any.
Well, obviously, I try and negotiate with my wife every single day of the week, Adam. Work sometimes, and sometimes I fail abysmally. But again, I would say the key message for all of us is, we've got to be open and honest in those negotiations, right? We've got to be able to lay everything on the table, and hopefully the other party can equally see that, we are looking to see how we can support them, and we're going to look to see how we can work with them shoulder to shoulder. There's an old saying about, you've got to, walk in the shoes of another person. I think that's really important. So I think, open and honest communication, and hopefully demonstrating that you are here to work with them in a very authentic way as well. I think, Adam, I'd say they're the kind of key messages that I'd leave with everybody.
Yeah, no, that's great. And look, we're looking into collaboration and deep relationships. Open and honesty, setting that tone. And I'm sure there's been some open and honest conversations with your wife about the Sevens next weekend coming around the corner.
Yes, absolutely. I have been able to secure a couple of tickets for myself, my son. We intend to be at the Hong Kong Sevens, the world's best Sevens event. But it's great. But you're right. That's also been a one long negotiation, Adam.
I've had the same conversation, don't you worry. Anson, just a couple more questions, and what I'd love to kind of gather from you. What advice would you give to others who kind of saw themselves at a similar career aspiration as you have had?
I've been lucky, though what I would say, Adam, there's no magic formula. My luck has come through a lot of hard work, but also it's about building up those networks. I think in particularly here in Asia, it is about building those long-term relationships, across the market. So I think that is a key message for all of us. We have really got to see how we can work on those relationships, be authentic when you are dealing with people, be empathetic as well. And I think a key message is you've got to be able to demonstrate that, you're here to help those executives. You're not here to create more work for them. You're here to help them in their daily work, and also in helping them on their career ladder as well, Adam. So I think that's really, really key. But yeah, the relationship side, but equally being, authentic, being passionate, understanding, again, a key message is understand the marketplace that we live and work in, look to contribute to that, that marketplace that we live and work in as well. And there's lots of things that we can do. And yeah, communicate, Adam. I think, again, they're very key. And I think for all of us, we do live in this digital first world today. So we've also got to look at the different channels of how we communicate. And, I think a key ask from COVID, and I talk to a lot of my clients, Adam, a key ask from those customers is, do you really know me? Right? Do you really understand me? What makes me tick? Right? I think that's a key message, right? Because those customers today are a heck of a lot more savvy than they were 3 years ago, right? And especially with the younger generation, they're very much, the digital natives today. They're very digitally minded, but they're also very socially aware as well, Adam. So, you've got to ensure that the audience, know your audience, know your customers. I think that's key messages.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Know who you're speaking to. Do you really know me? Great way to finish. Anson, look, thanks so much for your time today. I'm sure we could have spent hours and hours talking about the insights that you have. It's been great to have you on board.
Adam, pleasure. Great to be with you. Obviously, looking forward to more of these inside my head podcasts, and I'll certainly make sure that I listen in on more of the Gap Partnership podcast moving forward, my friend.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Speak to you soon.
Thanks. Take care. Have a good day.